Hello, and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Jeff Poole.
And I'm Joe Lalo.
All right, and our guest for you this week is going to be talking about using multi-author box sets to hit bestseller lists and jumpstart your career. And her name is Gwynn White. And just a quick correction before I introduce you, Gwen. Last week we were talking about doing box sets in Audible as audiobooks. And I said Podium had told me, at least with our publishing contract, that we couldn't do them in addition to individual titles. So that may still be true depending on who you're publishing with. But if you were going through ACX, Mark Cooper sent me a note and a link that I'll put in the show notes. You can put one box set of your individual titles in there as of right now. You can't do multiple box sets. So if you put, even in the same series, so you can like box up books 1 through 3, but then you can't later do 1 through 6. So you got to pick which one you want to do there. All right, there. Just wanted to correct that. And thank you, Mark, for sending me that link and correcting me on that. But jumping back, today's guest, Gwynn White, is a fantasy author, originally from South Africa and now living in Australia with her husband, 3 daughters, a Pomeranian, and a farm cat named Pixel. She's the author of a travel memoir called Torn Pants, and she's also penned numerous fantasy, steampunk, and it looks like fairy tale novels. She'll tell us more about them, but they're called the Crown of Blood series, and she's working on the Queen of Extinction trilogy. And one of the main reasons we wanted to have her on today is she's been a part of some multi-author box sets that have actually hit not only the USA Today list, but the New York Times bestsellers list, which I think you need to sell like 20,000 copies or something like that. We'll ask her. We'll ask her about it all today. Hi, Gwen. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hello. It's quite interesting. In the UK, I lived in the UK for 3 years, sort of from between South Africa and Australia. I lived in the UK for 3 years. And in the UK, if you use the word pants, you're actually referring to someone's unmentionables, their undergarments. So the title of the book is actually Torn Trousers, just as a correction.
I was like, when did I say pants? Where did I say pants? Oh, yeah, the book title.
So yeah, no, I didn't know that. I didn't know there was this distinction either between pants and trousers, but there you go.
Yes, I've actually been told that myself, and I often use trousers now in my science fiction stuff, just to be clear. In the future, they will be trousers. I don't know.
Yeah.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into writing and publishing?
I started writing professionally in the 90s, living in South Africa. I was doing adventure travel guides, how to, where to guides of where to go on adventure trails through Southern Africa. So basically, I was doing that with my husband, Andrew, and we opened up a lot of the uncharted areas of Southern Africa at that time. And then I got 3 kids, and that kind of put paid to everything. And when my kids were older and I was, just doing the afternoon run, so to speak, dump them at school in the morning and pick them up in the afternoon, I was using that morning time to start writing. And I've always loved fantasy. So that was where I started. It was an escape more at that point. I thought at the time, well, maybe I'd try and get it traditionally published the way we had our travel stuff. And I started down that traditionally publishing route and doing the querying and you're only allowed to write to one literary agent at a time, but we've got the right to keep you waiting for 3 months for an answer. And I realized actually this just wasn't what I was wanting to do. And at about the same time, I discovered you through, I had a Kobo app on my phone, and I was sitting outside the kids' school waiting to pick up kids, and I was, flipping through it, and I saw this book called Emperor's Edge by Lindsay Baroker, and it caught my eye, and I ended up reading the whole book on an iPhone 4. From there, I went to your website and I learned about self-publishing and et cetera, et cetera. And then I thought, no, this querying agents lark is for the birds. I'm not doing it. I'm going to self-publish. But during this time, we had for about 20 years Andrew and I had been working on this book, Torn Trousers. In the 90s, we'd run a lodge a safari lodge in the Okavango Delta. We sold everything and we chucked up and we went to live in Botswana and we ran this luxury lodge. And we'd started writing a book about 20 years ago on this. And we'd take it out and fiddle and put it back and take it out and fiddle. And it never sort of came to anything. But once self-publishing came onto the radar and it was a possibility, we decided to actually write this book. So in between doing my fantasy stuff, Andrew would, come and loom over my desk and say, "Are you working on Torn Trousers?" Yeah, sure. I'm working on, okay, put the fantasy aside, work on Torn Trousers. And this is how it went. Eventually, he said, "You have to finish that book, okay? Otherwise, I'm going to break your fingers." So I finished it. And I'm the poster child for knowing what to do, but not doing it. So we uploaded that book onto Amazon and it was incredible. It was in the top 500 in the Amazon store US. It hit #1 in the Australian store. The book still plods along really nicely, round about, it trails between 5,000 and 3,000 on the Amazon store with no help from me. So instead of writing the sequel, I went back to my fantasy stuff because that's my first love. I am now writing a sequel to Torn Trousers, but because of all pressures and stuff, that'll only come out next year. But I got into my fantasy. And again, being the poster child of doing what I want to do, not what I know I should do, I wrote a total genre mash. It's a mix of sci-fi, it's a mix of fantasy. It's just, I wrote the series I love, with the characters I love, doing what I love, and I thought, oh, maybe a bit of this would be nice, and I chucked it in there. Maybe a bit of steampunk in with my mind-controlling microchips, and have a bit of post-apocalyptic, and it's a whole mashup of stuff. I love the series. It'll never hit #1 on, Amazon because it is such a genre mix, but the readers who read it love it. And I will finish the series. I've got one book away from finishing, but I've now got smarter and I'm now writing more to market. And I'm now writing with my daughter, Erin. We co-authoring fairy tale retellings. Very much high fantasy, sword and sorcery, lots of magic, hunky heroes, romance, very much written to market, and those are fun. So she can be taught eventually.
Well, I understand perfectly as someone who just, I've oftentimes tried to write the first chapter of something that's to market and it veers off before the end of the first chapter. I'm like, well, I'm just going to write this and hope for the best. But it's funny because I remember you emailing me a couple of years ago and asking about how to sell your memoir. Travel memoir. And I think you might have been asking, should I go into Kindle Unlimited or something? And my thought was like, oh, I'm sorry, memoirs don't sell. You're not going to sell any of these. So imagine my surprise when you sold well. And I think the next time I looked, you had 100 reviews. And you said you didn't really do much. Did you?
Every now and again, look, okay, Andrew's got a huge YouTube channel. He's a YouTuber, adventure travel. So that helped. I mean, that definitely helped launch the book. He's got over 76,000 followers on YouTube. That definitely helped, which means I'm an idiot for still writing fantasy when I should really be writing more adventure travel. But she's too stupid to live. But anyway, so that definitely helped. And I've done the odd Kindle Countdown deal. Every now and again, I do a Kindle Countdown deal. But generally, it plods along very happily by itself. And I've had so much fan mail on it. It's got a nice number of reviews, and I really need to get my butt into gear. I'm halfway. I'm about a quarter of a way through the sequel to it. So that's next year's project.
Well, it's good to know there is an audience out there for the memoirs like that. And that one does sound, much more exciting than some memoirs. But and I feel like people say, oh, you can't self-publish and sell literary fiction or anything like memoirs. You might as well go for an agent. So it's nice to see that it worked out for you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, let me
So,
ask you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go.
Okay. You've become kind of a boxed set queen lately, I'm going to call you, because you've participated in quite a few and now you're running a couple of them, it looks like. How did you get involved in all that?
Last January, I decided that a multi-author box set would be a good idea. That I wanted to get involved with one. I didn't want to organize one. I didn't want to run one, but I wanted to be involved with one. And I started emailing a few people, Facebook messaging a few authors, and sort of feeling about to see if anybody was interested. And I made contact with Jasmine, and it so happened that Jasmine Walt, and it so happened at the same time, Jasmine was also thinking along the same lines. And as a result of that, I ended up with her in Magic and Mayhem. And that was the set that the first, I don't know if it was the first multi-author box set that hit New York Times, but it hit New York Times with about 13,000 sales. And that was in summer last year, August 2016. So that was how I started. Then I saw the potential of box sets. Box sets aren't for everybody, but box sets can do some very specific things for you. And if you know what your goals are, if you know what it is you want that box set to do for you, and you do the box set with that in mind, box sets can be very worthwhile. So I then saw Rebecca Hamilton was offering some more, she does a lot of box. She is actually the box set queen, not me. She was doing a spec fiction, science fiction, and fantasy box set, which I thought was quite intriguing, combining the two genres because I straddle both of them. I can't get the two genres sorted out in my mind. So I joined Documanity. And that box set hit New York Times in January this year. It hit number 5, which was really, quite nice. And then because I'm an idiot, I decided to start my own box set, working together with PK Tyler. She writes science fiction. She and I put our heads together and said, all right, let's put a box set together. And we handpicked some authors. We headhunted authors, actually. We knew specifically who we were looking for, what kind of author we were looking for. And we put together a team of, there are 25 authors in the set, 22 novels, and we're working like crazy. And the aim is to hit New York Times again. We'll see if we can manage it.
We should point out we've had people on before who have boxed up their own box sets and hit some lists and done the multi-author stuff. What's interesting about the ones you've been in is, as you mentioned, they're quite broad, like science fiction and fantasy. And some of them look like they've got 20 or more authors. Is
Yes.
that, is your goal basically to hit the lists and to get as many authors involved to help promote them?
Box sets can have a number of objectives. Dominion Rising, the box set that I'm busy organizing at the moment, and Marked by Fate, which is another box set I'm involved in, not as an organizer, but as a participant. Both of those box sets are list making. So was Magic and Mayhem, so was Documanity. We set out with the idea of, let's put together a box set, let's handpick some authors, let's put together a set of books that will be really desirable, that we believe we can sell a bucket load of and hit a list. USA Today, probably New York Times, ideally. So that's the goal. But then you get other box sets, multi-author box sets, where it's not a list making. It could be a money making venture where a bunch of authors get together and say, okay, let's combine efforts, combine investment, and let's put a box set together with 1 million words on Kindle Unlimited, and let's go for page reads and make some serious money. So it depends on what you're actually wanting the box set to do for you, as to what the purpose of the box set is. But for an author coming into a box set, again, you've got to have your mission, your goal of what you're wanting to do quite clear in your head, because a box set can do, I'm just reading a question that's popped up here. Can you ask Gwen whether or not they chose big names in order to ensure they hit the big bestseller lists? Well, yes, we did. I'll be honest with you. We went, Pav and I, when PK Tyler and I, when we sat down and said, right, we were going to do Dominion Rising, we said, right, who are we stalking? I sent you an email, Lindsay, and you turned me down. Never mind, I forgive you. But yes, we did. We decided we wanted a few headline authors that we could bring into the box set as, like the big malls. They always have the anchor stores, and then they build the smaller stores around them. They do that for a reason, because the big stores bring in the big, the bulk of the customers, and then the customers see the smaller stores and they go off and buy. So that's essentially what we did. We brought in Samuel Peralta on the science fiction side. We brought in D.K. Holmberg on the epic fantasy side. Those were our big names. And then we've got by singling those two out, don't for a minute, and my authors on Dominion Rising, don't shoot me because I haven't mentioned you, but we looked and said, right, we wanted a tier. We wanted a tier of authors, all the way down to authors who were perhaps not quite as well known. And the idea being, we read their works, we knew what the standard of their writing, so we curated that up front, and we said, right, let's build a tier and bring in authors that write well, who tell fantastic stories, and get in some headliners, then yeah, way to go.
All right, cool. And I think for that one, you wanted original stories, like
Yes,
original
we
novels. That was why I said no, not because I didn't want to work with you, but I just, at this point, like I have so much stuff scheduled that writing a novel to go into a box set where we're going to get a portion of 99 cents for each sale, it wasn't appealing to me, but I perfectly understand why you would want to do it. I think you're going to sell a ton of them because you have all these authors putting in new novels too, not just short stories.
The objective for Dominion Rising, for why a lot of people have decided to do this particular box set, and the other one that I'm doing later in October, which is Marked by Fate, which is a young adult box set, is that we're actually keeping them wide. We're not going into Kindle Unlimited. It was a discussion that we had with all the authors involved, and the feeling was that people are a little bit wary of Amazon at the moment, and a lot of authors that are actually wanting to go wide, but they understand the challenges of going wide. If you were wide in 2010, 2011, 2012, you're established. Someone coming now into this market, particularly if you've been in KU, lured into KU by borrows, and you haven't created a platform wide, it's daunting, it's scary. It's scary walking away from Amazon borrows, even if it's all, as clear as mud, the accounting and all of that. It's scary walking away from it. So one of the reasons why this box set, one of the motivations is for people to go wide with the box set, hopefully get readers on other platforms, so that when they put up the book 2 in their series, they can get some migration.
And we should point out, you do need to be wide also to hit the lists, right? You have to have Barnes and
Yes.
Noble or iTunes also reporting sales, or Kobo, I
Well,
think too.
for USA Today, it's Amazon and one other. So that would be Barnes and Noble or Apple, Kobo. But for New York Times, you need Amazon and 2 others. So it's that much a harder sell, because getting those sales, even at 99 cents with headline authors, 22 brand new novels, it is not easy getting sales on those other platforms. It's scary out there.
Definitely. And well, I want to ask you more about what you're doing for marketing, but let me pass you to the guys first, and we'll go into that in the second half.
Yep. Okay, so my first question is, we've had a couple people on the show now who've made it to the big time bestseller lists, and I like to ask them, has making the list had an impact on your career?
Yes, it has. I think if I had managed my career better, in that I had written to market and I had not been the poster child of, I know what I should be doing, but I'm just going to go and do what I want to do anyway, I think I would have got a lot more from it. Certainly from Magic and Mayhem. Hitting the list with Dark Humanity, it was actually quite funny. We were sitting in all around the world, all of us authors in our Facebook group, waiting for these lists to come out. You know, have we hit? And we're all on our computers, you know, because we're all kind of talking to each other on the Facebook group. And I see an email come in, and it says, can I offer you representation? And it was from a New York-based literary agent. I'm not going to mention his name. And he said, see you've hit New York Times list for the second time. Can I offer you representation? So he found out before we found out that we'd hit the list. So, I mean,
yeah. It's a pretty firm indication. It makes a difference.
It makes a difference. But then you've got to be smarter than I am, and you've got to actually capitalize on it. I've got to give him a new manuscript, which he's going to take out. Well, it's actually me and Erin, my co-author. We've got to put together a new manuscript for him, which, that's my dog. Sorry, she's just having a little cough. Which I can only, because of my current schedule, I can only look at doing that in the latter part of the year. So I will get a manuscript to him probably come November. Almost a year since he contacted me, but I'm keeping in contact with him with email and what have you. So yes, it definitely can help, but then you have to be in a position to act on it. And it helps if you're writing to market and you're doing all those other things concurrently to hitting a bestseller list. You've actually got to help yourself, is what I'm saying, and not put obstacles in your way.
Yeah, trust me, you're talking to the right guy when it comes to knowing the right thing to do, but not doing it. Because listeners of the show know that I've put out at least 2 books that I knew were a terrible idea, but they came out of my head. It's good to know though that hitting the list, is like, often the line is that it's just a line on your resume, but your resume is what gets you your next job. So it seems like worth pursuing if that's your thing, particularly if you're looking for a career in traditional publishing.
Yes, but there are other aspects to it. I mean, even if you don't get contacted by a New York literary agent, you do get sell-through. I mean, if you've put a good book into that box set, I mean, if you've put in a book full of errors and a bad story, and you're not going to get sell-through, okay? You're just not. But if you've put in a good story that readers want to read, that hit the mark of what the box set was trying to sell, if it was a paranormal romance box set and you put in a steampunk thriller, well, then probably you're not going to get sell through. But I mean, if the box set was targeted to a set of audience and you provided a book for that audience, you will get sell-through. I certainly have on every box set that I've been involved in. I've had sell-through. And that's really nice, because that sell-through, if you've just shifted 20,000 box sets at 99 cents, and 5,000 of those people read your book, because not everybody reads everything in a box set, but say 5,000 people read that book and like it, well, that's 5,000 books that you don't have to go and beg and plead for someone to buy. You don't have to be, doing Fiverr ad. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to pay for that advertising. You've got those readers. And like your second in your series, you've probably got a fan. So that is another advantage. But again, the book needs to be targeted, and it needs to be a good read. And you have to have a good blurb, because when you looking at a box set, you've now got 21 books or 22 books in front of you, and you're trying to decide what you're going to read, what you're going to look at. You're going to look at the little taglines, and you're going to find the tagline that intrigues you. Then you're going to click on it, read the blurb. If the blurb's no good, you've blown. It's no different to your Amazon sales page. So whatever you put in the box set in the way of blurb, tagline, you don't have cover, obviously, so you've got to catch them with words, because you can't catch them with pictures. So if those things aren't working for you, you're not going to get sell-through. So all the rules of selling books as a standalone apply to going into a box set. You've got to think to yourself, this book might be in a bundle with 22 other books. What am I going to do to make sure that those readers actually read mine? Because not everybody necessarily is going to read all 22.
Yeah, it's interesting how a box set, especially once you get over, 15 or so authors, it's almost just like a smaller shop front. You know what I mean? Like you're still competing at that level.
Yes, you are. And that's important. And I don't think, everybody says, oh, well, it's where I'm placed in the box set. That makes a difference. Yeah, sure, it does help if you, further to the front. But again, if your blurb and your tagline isn't enticing, even if you're the first novel,
it
doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get read.
Yeah, especially because it's an ebook and people can jump around without even having to flip a page. I'm going to ask one more question in this section, and then I'm going to hand you off to Jeff. Your bio mentions fairy tale novels, right? First off, is that just a feature? Like you were talking about, you've got a giant genre mashup. Is that just one of the genres that is mashed up, or are you writing specifically fairy tale novels?
I have now got wise, and I'm writing to market, but I still want to write what I love. And I'm writing specifically for the fairy tale retelling market. And yes, I know that that's been around for a while, and it's probably not the best place to be writing. They're probably hotter genres at the moment, but again, I have to write what I love. I've got to enjoy it. I've got to really be excited about my characters and about the world and all of that. So that's where I'm now focusing, following the tropes and doing the thing and making sure that my books are written to market. And I'm growing up. I'm becoming an adult.
Well, it's great that you're becoming an adult by fairy tales, which is kind of a great avenue toward adulthood. What are the tropes of the fairy tale genre?
There's some favorite fairy tales that everybody loves retellings of, and you can write, there can be 100 retellings and people will always read them. It's Beauty and the Beast, Sleeping Beauty, those are the perennials, Ice Queen or Snow Queen, whatever she was called. Those are the perennials. You have your heroine. It's many of those same tropes that you will find. You have your heroine. She has some kind of power or something that's latent within her. There is the hero that comes along, the prince in shining armor, But if you've been watching the latest Disney fairy tale retelling movies, Frozen, Tangled, even the latest Beauty and the Beast, it's not the case of the prince saves the damsel in distress. It's not that at all. It's very much the damsel in distress saves herself with the help of a really hunky, hot prince. So really, those are the tropes that we hitting.
All right, cool. It's funny. I'm gonna hand you off to Jeff after this because we got to continue on. But it's interesting how much overlap there is in fairy tale stories and superhero stories. Because it's always a gifted individual overcoming, the whims of a villain. It's sort of like we never stop telling the same story.
Well, there are only a few stories, aren't there? And
Yeah.
there are only a few archetypal heroes. And when you get into fantasy, and I suppose probably sci-fi too, that is what it's about, isn't there? There's the individual with the power who has to overcome the archetypal evil.
Yep. All right, that's it for this section. So I hand you off to Jeff now.
Alrighty. Well, first and foremost, let me just say I saw the cover for the Dominion Rising. Very sharp. I think whoever did that did a really good job on that. So, all right, okay. So you obviously you have a lot of experience now working with the box sets, and I know with like a lot of these 3D covers, some retailers frown on it. And obviously, if you want to try and hit all your lists, that you'll have to release this thing wide. So, I mean, there's obviously some tricks of the trade that you're going to have to pick up in order to do a successful box set. I mean, is there any that you can share with us? Like if we have a first-time author that says, I want to make my own box set and organize it, is there anything they should be on the lookout for?
Sure. Let's start off with the covers. Amazon, you can do a 3D cover. Nook and Kobo, you can do 3D covers. Apple, you can't. I think they're too snooty to do 3D covers. So it depends on how you're uploading. If you're uploading direct to Apple, you obviously give them a flat cover. If you're uploading through D2D, for example, and you're uploading Apple, Nook, and Kobo, for example, you actually have to approach D2D and say, please give them two covers. You give them a 3D version and you give them a flat version, and you say to them, please would you upload this to Apple and that to the other two, and they will then do it for you. Amazon is easy. I mean, you just upload. However, talking about Apple and I'm talking about Amazon only gives you 90 days on your pre-order. And if you're wanting to go for a list, a longer pre-order is a nice thing to have. It has its ups and downs. So you have to work very hard to keep momentum and excitement in your group if you've got a long pre-order. But a long pre-order allows you to get more sales, obviously. So Amazon also has a rule that if you of a file size at a 99-cent price point, you can only upload to a certain file size at a 99-cent price point. If a file goes above that level, they force you to $1.99. So during your release week, when you really are wanting to get a lot of sales, Amazon will try and force you, well, they won't try, they will, force you to price at $1.99. So to get around that, we're using Pronoun. And Pronoun gives you a much longer pre-order period. So we loading to Amazon via Pronoun, which meant that we're releasing on the 8th of August, but we uploaded there on the 1st of March. So it's given us a much longer run up for pre-orders. The other advantage of using Pronoun is that Amazon doesn't force you to price match at to change your price to $1.99 for a big file. They will keep the file at 99 cents.
Really liking this company right about now.
And you get a 70% royalty on sales in the US. So on a 99-cent book. So nice. But the disadvantages to everything, the disadvantage of going with Pronoun is you don't have control. the way you don't have it on your Amazon dashboard and you want to tweak something and you just go and tweak and you want to change this. No. Everything has to be done through pronouns. So it's, emails, please change this, or, we want to tweak the blurb or whatever. So you lose that control. But you've got to weigh that up. Can you
log in there and be able to see what your sales would be? Like if you're like,
yes.
Okay. I would think that'll be the one factor that most people like. Yeah, I want to be able to make sure I can see, because it sounds like you're giving a lot of control to another company there. Even though there's pros and cons either way, but thus far from the sounds of it, I'm thinking the pros are outweighing the cons.
Sales lag. It's not like you're seeing today's sales today. It's usually about 3, sometimes 4 days behind, but you can still see your sales. But certainly on Amazon, if you're looking at your rankings telling you what your sales are, for the few days that you have the lag on the sales reporting.
Okay. Now you touched on this briefly just a little bit ago. I'm curious too. Do you feel there's a limit to the number of books that can be included in one box set?
I think we've pushed the limit at 22. I think that's a lot. I don't know of anybody who's done more than that. I don't think I would do more than that, because I think even with a really good tagline and a good blurb, I think there's a possibility that you're going to get reader fatigue.
Is there a minimum that you would say there has to be at least this many books in a good box set?
What's your objective of the box set? If your objective of the box set is just to go into KU and make some money, take 10 books, each book is 60,000 words, you've got a meaningful number of words there for page reads. If you're trying to hit a USA Today list or a New York Times list, unfortunately that takes money, it takes advertising money, and for that you need buy-in, and therefore you need more authors to come in with that buy-in to give you your ad spend. So again, it's what are you trying to achieve with your box set, which is why list making box sets generally have 20, 21, 20, well, we've got 22 authors, 22 books, not necessarily authors.
All righty. And I see that many of your titles that aren't in box sets are actually in KU. Do you have any plans on releasing them wide?
Yes, my Queen of Extinction series is going to be going wide in May.
So are you starting out? I take it how long are you giving it in KU? Like 1 3-month session, or are you going longer than that?
I'm actually not putting it in KU. I've decided to take the plunge and go wide with it. It's been in Documanity box set, which was wide. I may live to regret this, but I've approached BookBub and asked them, I've told them that, I've approached them and asked them if they would consider giving me a featured deal, because I'm going wide and I want to do a USA Today run on that Queen of Extinction, the first book in the trilogy. If they say to me, nah, which they probably will, then I might consider and just go into KU with it. But I'm actually tired of being a chicken. I'm tired of being a chicken. I actually want, publishing is a long game to me. I want to still be doing this in 10 years, which means I don't want to be beholden to one retailer. And the honeypot of Amazon, it's such a lure, but man, they can jerk us around. And that I don't like that. So
I feel obligated to say no comprendo.
I'm not sure I understand.
No, that's just as I'm saying. I've I happen to know from experience that I swear that our good friends there, the honeypot there, are listening. So I'm just going to go no comprendo to that one. I love Amazon.
No, I do too. Amazon has been very good to me. Amazon has been very good to me, and I admit that freely. What they did for my Torn Trousers book was amazing. They featured it. They did amazing stuff for it. And I know that if I give them another book like that, they will do the same again. But I'm going to say what I feel, that I feel that there has been a lot on the KU side that's made a lot of people very nervous. And I just think it's a wise business strategy to have one's eggs in more than one basket.
Couldn't agree more. Trust me, I could not agree more. But, all right, that is my last question. Let me hand it over to Lindsay, and she's got a few more for you.
All right, let's jump into talking about how you're selling these box sets. I mean, you've given us some hints already. I did want to ask/clarify for those listening and thinking of putting together a box set now. If you do it in Kindle Unlimited, they've got a page count cap right now on how much they actually will count. I think it's 3,000 pages.
Yes.
So a million words now all of those wouldn't be counted, but you can still make a lot if they count 3,000. I mean, that's probably like $10 per if somebody reads through to the end. So it can still be worth it, but they're always changing the rules. So it's worth keeping an eye on that for those who want to do it more for the money than the lists. But let me ask you, you mentioned buy-ins and the authors are investing some money and stuff. So what kind of ads are you guys doing to hit those lists?
Let me start with the buy-in. Each author, different box sets have different buy-ins. For the box sets that I've been involved in, buy-in is $500 and per author, and that goes to paying for a cover and then paying for advertising. Advertising, the king on the block, unfortunately, is BookBub. And BookBub ads are very expensive, but they sell a lot of books. So we spend money on BookBub ads, we're doing Facebook ads, and then there are all the other traditional email-based ads that we book for release week primarily. So try and cover every base. But another important part of getting sales are newsletter swaps. So if you're putting together a box set and you're looking to invite authors to join you, another factor to look at, apart from the caliber of author and the books they write and whether they're actually targeted to the set that you're putting together, is to have a look at the size of their newsletter database, because being able to target 300,000 or 500,000 readers through newsletters, those are free sales, so to speak, and that's a value that cannot be discounted.
Absolutely. When you've got all these authors and you have access to their newsletters, that's great. And everybody that they know too. As we were talking about, one of your authors in the new one for the set is one of my old friends from way back workshopping days, and we beta read for each other. And she emailed me and said, like, hey, I'm in this box set. Would you mind mentioning it? So I think I had agreed to do that in May or June here coming up. And that's the one that comes out, I think, in August. So yeah, those are free. So that's the best kind of advertising for sure.
One of the things that we've done with both Dominion Rising and Marked by Fate is we've put together author giveaways, inviting authors, other indie authors, to promote the box sets in their newsletters, and they go into a draw, and each month they can win a selection of prizes, things like a 300,000 newsletter blast of one of your books if you win, to a combined newsletter blast of 300,000 people, or other things that other authors have offered as prizes, to just get more people. The idea with the box set, in fact, the idea with any publishing, I've come to learn as I've got to be an adult, is that you actually want to do less with more. You want to do more with less. So you want to actually just be doing the writing and try and get as many other people working for you as you can. And that's one of the great things about being in a box set, is you get that collaboration. But if you can get other people to do a newsletter swap of your new release or something like that, where you can get other people working for you, it makes so much more sense.
I would imagine you need some of that too if you're shooting for like the New York Times list. It sounds like maybe in the summer you only need, I say only, 13,000 to make the list, but I've heard as much as 20,000, kind of depending on the time of year. And that's super hard if you're trying to pay-per-click with the Facebook ads or BookBub. When you said, I think people might know, but you know, you're talking about the pay-per-click ads that you can buy, not getting a sponsorship from them. So that can be expensive, and each click is not going to equal a sale. So I imagine you have to kind of hustle to get those kind of numbers.
You do. And it is seasonal. I'm counting on summer being able to hopefully come in with 15 or 16,000 sales. But I'm the eternal pessimist as well. So I always plan for the pessimistic outcome. So I'm planning for as if it was a December release or a January release. Documanity, we sold 21,000 books. So that's kind of what we're aiming for summer as well. Whether we hit it or not remains to be seen, but that's the plan. Because to get into the top 20 on either New York Times or USA Today, those are the kind of numbers that you're looking at of sales.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's funny because with ebooks and self-publishing, we're happy. Like if we sell 5,000 of a book, we can actually make pretty good money. And it becomes difficult for sure to get all those. Although the pre-orders help. We should say, I don't know if we specifically said it, but all of those pre-order sales that come over the months count towards that release week, right?
Yes, they do. They kick in on release day. And then you've got the rest of that, well, not quite the whole week, but you've got the next few days to really push it and get the last few thousand. What we would normally get over the lifetime of a book, we try and get in the release week in terms of sales.
Yeah, and I should, point out that anybody that's listening, your bonus there about pronoun, using that to get a longer pre-order on Amazon, I think that was worth the price of the admission to the podcast here, because I didn't know about that. I knew they gave the 70% on the 99-cent books, but I also didn't know about the file size thing. I've definitely been in groups where we struggled with that, where we had epic fantasy novels, maybe 8 of them, and the file was too big, and we were trying to price match it down to 99 cents, and we got slammed because Amazon said, give us a little smack, can't do that. So that's good to know that they're doing that now. I was going to ask you how you got such a long pre-order, so it's good to know.
Another thing that we did both with Dominion Rising and Marked is we put up the Apple pre-order first. And that enabled us to get some exclusives with Apple. Their reps were more likely, were willing to talk to us because we gave them an exclusive. And that helped as well because everything was focused. Everybody's efforts was focused on getting those critical sales. So right now on Dominion Rising, we've got more than the 500 sales that we need on the Apple Store. So that's really nice. Going in, by the time we went live on Amazon in March, we were very close to our 500 target on Apple, which is really nice because you've got those sales banked, which means you can start, putting focus on the other retailers and then just letting Apple tick over. And so that also helped doing the pre-order first on Apple.
Right. It doesn't hurt if somebody in your group of authors you've got there has got reps at Barnes & Noble and Apple and Kobo and such, I'm sure.
That all help. One of the magnificent things for me about, I've made the lists, I've got the literary agent. Okay, so my objectives are a bit different perhaps to somebody else. When I say the literary agent, I will also always still self-publish. This is, I would like to be a hybrid, you know, do my own stuff where I can go and write my own genre mishmash and do my own thing. And then, okay, but I've got those things. The other thing that working in a big box set brings, you collaborating with 20 other authors who are skilled. They're bringing marketing ideas to the pot, things that you don't think of on your own. It's almost like a crash course in marketing, because you've suddenly got all these people saying, you know, why don't we try this? Or I did that. And you can't be an expert on everything. So suddenly you've got the Insta freebie expert, and you've got the Instagram expert, and you've got the person who's got head talkers down, you know, who knows how to run a really good head talker campaign, someone who's brilliant at Facebook parties. You can't know all this stuff yourself. But by the time you've been in a box set for a few months, everybody working their butts off, contributing these skills, you walk away from the set with a much, much broader knowledge than you had when you went in. And you can then say, right, you know, I like that, I would do that again. And if she's wise, use it for your own launches. So that's another real advantage of.
Yeah, the learning experience thing I don't think gets mentioned very often, but definitely I can see where that would be true. And you know, I guess I don't know if we actually said it's only been maybe 1.5 years, I think, since you published your first fantasy novel, and you've got a few out, and it's been a little longer since the memoir, but it sounds like you just sound like you really know your stuff here for a fairly newer to the scene author.
Yeah, and that has come through hard knocks. It's also come through listening to podcasts. You know, I'm one of your regulars. And it's come through box sets. Box sets has been huge, because you're working with people who just bring a wealth of knowledge, and it's all combined, and you have access to it and can learn so much to further your career. So, you know, if someone is looking at doing a box set or getting involved in a box set, whether you hit a list or not, just do it for the pure education of it.
Sounds like a good idea. Thank you for answering my questions. Let me pass you to the guys for a few more before we let you have your the rest of your day there in Perth.
Yep. Well, we're getting close to the hour already, and a couple of my questions have already been answered, so I got 2 quick ones for you. First, we're talking, you know, but it seems like one of the more effective ways to sell a box set is for it to be an original book, like released as part of the box set. Do those books stay in the box set, or is it just a period of exclusivity and then they're allowed to release them separately?
It depends on what you negotiate in your contract. If the box set's going, generally, yes, your books will be exclusive to the box set for a period. How long that period is, it depends on the box set organizer. Marked by Fate, the young adult one, after a week of making the lists, the whole thing is disbanding, and I'm taking my book out and I'm free to do whatever I want. Dominion Rising and some of the other box sets that I've been on, it was for 3 months afterwards. And it either then goes into KU, or as we're doing, it goes wide, and it stays in the box set for the 3 months. At the end of 3 months, there's in the contracts, there's an option to extend it, but I think at that point, everybody they've got their sequels ready and they're ready to launch their series, or, you know, do whatever they want with it, and off they go.
Yep, which sort of goes into the other thing I wanted to ask, which is, should box sets just be like, it seems like the primary success of a box set is the number of sales you can get up front. Like, that's how they're so useful for getting on lists. So I know a lot of people like to do temporary box sets where it's only out for a few months. Do you think Do you think that's worthwhile, or do you think you can get long tail sales on a box set and it's best to just leave it up?
Are you talking about multi-author or an author with your own stuff in your own box set? Because obviously if you're an author with your own stuff in your own box set, you just leave it up. I mean, why not? Multi-author box sets, I know that there's some that have stayed up. I'm thinking of Once Upon a Curse. I know that box set's been up for ages. It was also a fairy tale retelling box set. I know that's been up for a long time. I suppose it depends on the objectives of the group of authors who put it together. And I mean, they're looking at their sales figures and make the call.
Yeah, I know that I've been in a box set that was like, intended to be a list maker or at least a money maker. And we were intending for it to be a pretty short run, but it was still selling well enough at the end of that run that we all collectively agreed to continue it. So yeah, I guess one of the nice things about being an indie author is that this decision doesn't have to be set in stone from the beginning. We're all a lot more flexible than a publisher might be.
Yes, yes. And another thing that you've got to keep on your toes. You've got to keep, rules change, the retailers change rules quite quickly and quite often. And this can affect things. So you've got to be agile. I mean, you've just got to keep your ears to the ground, see what's happening, see what the retailer's doing, and respond accordingly.
Yeah. The one thing that the indie authors will always have over the publishers is that we can be a lot more nimble.
Yes.
All right. Well, those are my questions for this section. So I'll hand you off to Jeff for the last few.
All righty. Yes, I've already had a question that's been answered too, so I've got two for you. Now, communication. When you're setting up your 22-book box set, how do you typically keep in contact with your authors? Set up a private Facebook group, email, video chats? What do you usually do?
Private Facebook group. That's the first thing. And all the communication relating to the box set happens there. If necessary, if you want to speak to one author or whatever, you can always, I use Facebook messaging a lot. I spend way too much time on Facebook, but I never post anything on my personal profile. Nobody even knows me. It's all, taking place in these private groups. So that way, and then with PK Tyler, Pav, who I'm organizing Dominion Rising with, we Skype.
Skype and Facebook. Okay, so I'm doing the right thing then. That's good. And I've always looking for someone that might actually be able to give a hand here. Do you have any experience or success with Amazon ads?
Yeah, I've had some success with Amazon ads. I've also given Amazon quite a bit of money through Amazon ads. I recently, I did Mark Dawson's Facebook course a year or so ago. I was one of his early adopters. I think I did his second course, whatever. And I know he's just brought in a module on Amazon ads and I need to sit down and go through it. He's got some very interesting ideas that I hadn't thought about of how to target and what have you. I sat up at 3 o'clock in the morning listening to his webinar a few weeks ago, and because I specifically wanted to hear what he was saying about Amazon ads, and he's got some interesting ideas. For me, it was always, I would just stick in a few hundred authors that I thought, and books that I thought were targeted to my books, but he's very specific. He takes a specific author and then works out from that author. And so, yeah, I'm quite excited to have a look at what he's doing. Another thing with Pronoun, you can't, if you do not upload your book directly through your Amazon dashboard, you cannot use Amazon ads. So if you're uploading a book through Pronoun, you cannot use Amazon ads, which is really unfortunate. That is a serious downside.
That's good to know. Definitely good to know. All right, those are my two questions then. Let me go ahead and hand you to Lindsay, and we'll see if we can wrap this up for you.
All right, I guess it's an hour, so we should probably let you go. One last question here. Jeff Haskell asks, any advice on the cover for a boxed set?
Get a good cover artist is the first thing. Know your genre. Know what you're trying to communicate. We fiddled quite a bit with the Dominion Rising box set cover. The first cover was a Rebecca Frank cover. It was gorgeous, I thought, but it was very, very much pink and purple and what have you. And we found that it just wasn't hitting the men. And in science fiction, if you're not hitting the men, or you're kind of missing the boat there a bit. So one of the authors, Erin Hayes, in the box set, she also does covers. She took the cover and she changed the colors to more gender neutral, I think. And that made a difference. So when you're putting your cover together, who's your target market? Who do you want this cover to speak to? What must it communicate? Because if you've got 22 different authors with 22 different books, everybody wants their book represented on the cover, which obviously you can't do. So you have to find something generic that says either fantasy or sci-fi or whatever it is that you're wanting. And it's a generic cover that must have a mass appeal.
All right, that does it for questions. Thank you so much for all this information on the box sets. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your own fantasy, and we kind of ran out of time. Would you like to tell people maybe the first book in your series that they could check out? And we will put a link to Dominion Rising in the show notes, episode 129 here, so people can check that out too.
I'm going to give you a link for my young adult box set as well. If you could put that in, I'd be grateful.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
It's up on Apple now for pre-order. First book in my Crown of Blood series. This is my genre mishmash. If you like genre mishmash, she's got great characters, that I will tell you, even if it is a genre mishmash. That's Rebel's Honor, and it's only in KU at this point. And then my Queen of Extinction links will only be available in May when it comes out of the Dark Humanity box set, and I then go wide on that.
All right, sounds good. And where can people find you online?
GwynWhite.com.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for everything. We really appreciate all the great information. I'm telling you, I'm going to use pronoun the next time I want to actually, I came close to the USA Today list with some of my Dragon Blood stuff when I was actually publishing wide, and looking back, I'm like, if I'd done this long pre-order, that probably could have happened. So I appreciate that tip very much.
Pronoun, I'm going to remember that too.
I don't think they were around last year, or not in their current form, but they're a up-and-comer apparently. So
fantastic.
Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you, Gwen, for coming on.
Yep, thanks for all the info, Gwen. It's nice to meet you.
Take care.
Everybody.